That's not an alien. That's not an alien. That's not an alien. That's not an alien. He said, she said. That's how I describe converting a film or TV script into a book. When I started, I was just doing short stories. And then I wrote a film about the band I was in at the time. Sort of in. My band were going to go into the future and cause all sorts of comedic mayhem. Then I wrote a sequel to that. Then I started work on this thing called Mega World about a shopping planet. And then I got stuck and started work on That's Not an Alien. But these were all film scripts at the time. But eventually I realised that it's a lot easier to get a book published than to get a film script turned into a movie. And so I decided to turn these all into books. And so what I've got is, scene, describe the location, then character and how they're responding, then dialogue. And so you just do that. You're doing the simplest, you're not going into long descriptions of everything because that's for later. You're just doing the script and where people are standing and what they're doing. Eventually I started putting in all the camera angles and everything because I thought, oh, bugger this, I'm not going to do it later, I'm going to do it now. If I think he should be standing there and she should be close to the camera, then that's what I'm going to say. I would write the script and I would try and finish it, but so often there'd be sort of bits all over the place and there'd be gaps, but I'd be eager to turn it into a book. So then I did he said, she said. He said this, she said that, but that's boring going he said, she said. So I try not to do that. So the fact that I'm trying to turn this script into a book means half of it's there and now I can add all this other stuff and make things more interesting. The character might be indignant and say, what are you talking about? So I'll put that as she threw indignation in his face and it dribbled down his shirt. What are you talking about? Embarrassment covered his face like flour from a shopping bag. I was reading a Patrick White book at college. And at one point it said, what, he said, is it? And I thought, oh, that's ridiculous. Don't be so stupid. So I almost vowed to never actually say he said, she said in my book. I always tried to find an interesting way to express it. Throwing indignation and then I'd be playing with words like she couched her disbelief in intrigue and then he responded with a sofa. Put the word couch in there so then he responds with an armchair and then she retorted with a grandfather clock. And at one point in one of my books it's like, if you'd like to see this house with the grandfather clock of confusion and the couch of suspicion, the eiderdown of intrigue, then this house is on inspection this weekend. But hurry, it may sell quickly. Going off on all sorts of tangents, describing what the characters are doing, describing the scene, and then going off on a bit of a tangent. And then, of course, Cathumus starts making comments because when I first started all of this, Cathumus was just reading the whole book.
They tried the microwave. Nothing. It looked like an impressive device, even from the inside. But apparently it was defective, like the toaster.
But then I realised, no, keep Cathumus separate in parentheses, so that if he wants to make a comment, you can see it that he's commenting. Sometimes he'll refer to me as the author. The author did this and the author said that. And so it was something like the look of doubt on his face was about as convincing as a Lego moon landing. And then Cathumus will say something like, is that how they faked the moon landing? I've always wondered. Well, he doesn't really seriously believe that thing. He'll believe a conspiracy theory or say, is that what happened? Oh, I was wondering. But he doesn't really mean it. It doesn't really matter what he thinks, whether he's seriously confused or seriously taken in. As long as he makes a stupid comment, that's all that matters. I mean, if there were people out there who just want to read an ordinary book where the characters just talk and then they get in a car and drive and stuff like that, well, this is probably not the book for you because there's all sorts of going off on tangents and talking about silly things and then Cathumus making stupid comments. I often start with a film script and it eventually turns into a TV script because the thing just gets longer and longer and longer. I was sort of aiming for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it just keeps getting longer and longer. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? Is this going to be in the sequel? And I thought, nah, stuff it. I'll just make it a series of half-hour episodes. That way I can do a bunch of stuff in 1 half hour, and then you come back next week for another half an hour. So it gives you a bit of a rest. You don't have to watch the whole thing in one go. And if you want to do that, if you want to binge watch all of this on some streaming service, well, that's up to you. But don't blame me if you go blind or mad. You watch the TV show and all the characters will be talking one after the other. But if you're reading the book, there'll be all sorts of descriptions of how they look at each other. When you're watching this on the TV, you can see the look of confusion or the look of contempt or someone rolling their eyes. So I have to describe that in the book. So there's endless stuff about he rolled his eyes like they were dice at a casino, and he came up with sixes. He wished he'd won $1 million, but he was just left with this contempt and an eye roll. And there'll be things like, he rolled his eyes for the umpteenth time. He probably wished he'd brought his eye drops with him. He was probably regretting not doing his eye massages before this conversation. As I said in an essay I once wrote about comedy is like a supermarket. You go into a supermarket, and if there's like a couple of different cans of baked beans or just one brand of baked beans, you think, nah, it's not very good, and then you leave. But if there's all sorts of different varieties of baked beans and soup and stuff like that, you're walking around going, oh, that's interesting, I've never seen that before. Oh, I must try that. And so it's the same thing with comedy. You don't like 3 jokes. You've got to try and get as many jokes in as possible. So if you're describing something, try and think of a funny way to comment on that. A comedian who shall not be named was making a joke about politicians and honesty, and she sort of went, politicians and honesty is a bit... And I thought, well, perhaps she could have said something like, politicians and honesty go together like an elephant and a pair of Y-fronts. The opportunity to stick a joke in somewhere. So that's sort of what I'm doing. I'm just keep sticking jokes in there, because when I worked for the post office, I'd get on the train in the morning and I'd read a book, and then I'd get on the train in the evening and I'd read a book, and that was before I started doing all this writing. So I'm trying to keep myself entertained before work, knowing that I'm going to do a really boring job, and then afterwards sort of relaxing from a really boring job by reading a good book. So you think, well, the longer the book goes, then the longer you can enjoy it. And you think, oh, I'm halfway through this book. Oh, I'll enjoy reading that on the train tomorrow. Or I had this wonderful job where I sat in a corner and waited for customers to turn up, and I'd go and get their parcel for them. Most people didn't want to do that job because it was so boring. But if you had a good book to read, then you could read the book until the customer turned up. But in my case, of course, I was writing books, writing music, drawing album covers, all sorts of drawing spaceships. So, yeah, you just got to keep yourself entertained through the boring bits of life. As I say in my song, Bend in the Sky, life is too short, but the hours are terribly long. For the waiting we're taking out, we could die young. So that's basically it. Charlie Watts, what have you got to say about 25 years of being in the Rolling Stones? And he said it was like, well, 5 years of being in the Stones and 20 years of sitting around. You spend a lot of life rather bored, and you need something to keep you entertained. So if it's a nice big book, then you can keep yourself entertained for longer. You read until you get bored, and then you put the book away and you look out the window of the train or the bus. Whatever. We just, if you finish the book, you think, oh, God damn it, now I've got to go and buy another book for the afternoon's trip home. Or, oh, I finished the book, now I've got to look out the window at the boring scenery. So yes, I'm just trying to give people their money's worth with lots of jokes. And if the jokes have nothing to do with the story, if it's Cathumus ranting about something stupid, well, so be it. As long as you laugh. Laugh, damn you! That's all I want. And surely that's what you want. You just want to laugh. If you're sitting there going, well, I haven't nothing funny on that page. Oh, mildly funny. I have watched films and sort of sat there waiting to laugh. I've watched sitcoms and sketch comedy where the sketch ends and I think, was that the punchline? I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for you to say something funny, and you've actually finished the sketch and I didn't see anything funny. I mean, obviously, if you read my book and you don't find anything funny, then you probably should read somebody else's book with a different sense of humour. If you don't like satire and sarcasm and a little bit of surrealism, and hyperbole and that kind of stuff, then sorry, you've bought the wrong book. But if you love all that kind of stuff, then go ahead and buy my book, or like and subscribe to this YouTube channel, so that that will help me get a publishing deal. They'll say, oh, look how many subscribers he's got. Everyone loves this guy. We have to publish his book. It must be a work of genius. I've never read it myself, but all these people like it. As Douglas Adams once said, a film company came to him to talk about turning his book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, into a film. And he said they hadn't read the book, but they'd read the sales figures. And that was all they really cared about. So in this case, because I hadn't published the book, the only thing they've got to go on is subscribers and likes and views and that kind of stuff. It's metrics, I think that's what they call it. But that's the way the world works nowadays, and you can get exact metrics. When I was in uni, we did this. We made some videos, put them online.
Channel R. It's real reality.
And then we had to sort of report on the metrics. Oh yes, 3 people looked at my video and 2 of them stopped looking after 2 minutes. 1 person looked at it all the way through. So you can analyze things like that to the umpteenth degree. I'm not going to be analyzing everything to the 10th decimal place. The publishers might be doing that, and then anyway, we'll see what happens. I'll just keep churning out videos like this until I become famous. You see if I don't. I warn you, if I don't become famous, I'm going to keep doing this, and you'll be forced to watch for the simple fact that you've got nothing better to do except look out the train window. So there, all right? Back to saying things.
Why not subscribe to youtube.com/ScuttyArk and never be bored ever again?
Possibly.